PowerToFly. My name is Mariella, and I'm super excited to dive into this next hour with you. I had a chance to speak with our guest speaker offline, and I know that she's going to rock your world for the next hour. I'm going to try to be as present as I can and not like write notes vigorously as she's speaking, as I always recommend you all do, to be present with us and then watch the recorded video later on PowerToFly, and then you can take notes there. That gives me a perfect moment to go into some housekeeping rules. So you are here with us for the hour, and if you're watching us live on YouTube, we appreciate you. If you're re-watching this recording on PowerToFly, we also appreciate you. I just want to invite everyone who's live with us right now to be present with us, so that we can get some of your questions answered live here. Again, you're taking the time out of your busy schedule, so I'm going to sound like a broken record by the end of this chat. I want to hear from you. With that said, I've muted everyone upon entrance, but I can't stress enough, come off of mute whenever you have something to say. If you had a dream last night, or you have a wild question, we want to dive in deep with you today. So come off of mute or write in the chat box. If you have any anonymous information, sensitive topics you want to write, you can find me in the chat box and write me anonymously, and I will flag that to our guest speaker. And the last thing I'll say is that this is being recorded. We will send you a rewatch email later, so you can watch this on PowerToFly, and make sure you follow us on social so that you can stay in tune with all the great chats we've got coming up. Without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic to our guest speaker today. Amelia, I'm super excited to host you today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came to know about PowerToFly, and what you're excited to share with us today?
Yeah, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I started way back before the word entrepreneur even existed in my brain. I have grown companies, about 6 companies now to date, over 180 million, and then a few more that are right around the $100 million mark. My claim to fame is I brought green mainstream. When green was just a color, and people thought I was out of my mind, exited that company, and then just kept been doing it ever since then. And now basically stepped back into the ring, just because we've had this massive universal reset. And so the secret sauce to a lot of the successes that I've done, a lot of the turnarounds I've done for athletes, musicians, entertainers, a lot of the big names, big brands that people know, I've always been the girl behind the scenes. I'm just sharing. I'm really sharing information on how to really kind of move towards where you want to go, but more importantly, understanding where you really want to go. And that was the premise behind releasing the Genius Key publicly, was to hand the information to other people who just wanted to kind of take back the stick shift, right? The control inside, whether they're an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur, and not let it be a secret on how these companies grow and scale, and what that means for an individual, and what that means if you're working within a company. But really, I take my human behavior, which is how I've continued to do the work that I've done, and I love what I do. I teach it to other people, so that whatever works for them. And so that's really PowerToFly was originally, my mentor, who's Jillian Manis, who's one of the largest, she's owned Structure Capital, which is probably the largest female-run capital group here in the U.S. She's the one who first introduced me to PowerToFly, and then from there, I was reintroduced to it again, I think, for something in my network, and I was like, wow, what a great resource, that I wish I had along the way. Other women that are doing real things in the grind every day is where you're going to get the advice that you need to get in the grind every day, right? There's the talkers and then there's the doers. And so I loved the fact that you guys had put together the people who are actually doing it and collaborating. It's like a living forum group.
Yes, and it's what's wild to me is that the more visibility that happens with showing diversity inclusion in the workplace, especially, the more confidence other folks get for not being able to, historically speaking, see someone like them in these roles in leadership and things like that. So it's so fascinating to see other folks encourage each other, even on these live chats, and all the events that we have. So I thank you for calling that out, because yes, we need communities like these to encourage us. You all have submitted some great questions offline. We are going to walk through this next hour, taking your questions one by one. And we'll start with this first question here. So if you see your question come up on the screen, even if this isn't your question, you want to chime in, again, we want to hear from you. So write in the chat box or come off of mute. And yes, let's have fun in this next hour. So Amelia, what are your tips for building a startup from 0 to 100 million members? everyone knows you have to provide value to draw customers, but sometimes it's a challenge to get people to recognize the value you create.
Right. So I think the first part of that question is, how do you, how do you go from 0 to 100 million? Let's just be real clear. People talk about 100 million, but they have no context to what that means. I did not start my business and say I wanted to start $100 million business, right? Because that's usually a tip that tells you that somebody has no idea what they're talking about, right? Because it's massive, and there's phases that happen on the natural trajectory of a business. What takes from 0 to 1 million will kill you from 1 to 3, and 3 to 5 is a different game, and 5 to 7, and so on and so forth. So people who really have experience with what this looks like, the growth scale inside of a company, are less to throw around. I'm going to create $100 million company. That usually tells you somebody has no idea what they're talking about. And so it's about phases of growth and phases of being introspective, right? So a company is like a staircase, right? There's growth, and then you flatline as you analyze what is and isn't working. And then you put together a plan, and then there's growth again. And so it looks like a staircase if all's going well. It kind of looks like this if it's not going well, but we all kind of know that roller coaster. And so the second part about it is, how to draw customers. The marketplace, right, has dramatically shifted, right? I call this the great universal reset. As customers and technology have gotten smarter, it has changed the way businesses are built. And we've heard a lot about that over the last decade. We have a lot of people that are still talking about millennials. And I'm like, you do realize all those people grew up already, right? Like, that's the wrong generation you're talking about. But there was a huge influence on that generation of what it's done for business. And one of it that it did was it addressed the immediate mindset, right? And what I mean by the immediate mindset is the gold watch, the working for a long period of time, is long gone. Right? The younger generation came in to say, you know what? I want it here and I want it now. I want to live now. And then the generation right behind the millennials, right? So there's lots of names for them, from the Jones to whatever you want to call it, but right behind the millennials, what they said was, it's not that they just want to live here and now, they want to have impact and purpose. And because there's more of that energetically pushing, it changed all business. So when you start to talk about how do I draw in customers, you have to really start with why. Like, why you can't start having a conversation with somebody else until you understand what the conversation is with yourself. What are you trying to do? Why are you trying to do it? What is the outcome and the goals and objectives you're really trying to dig into? Because if they are old thinking, right, and our education system taught it all to us, old thinking about be a doctor, be a lawyer, be an MBA, make a lot of money, and then live your life. If you have this, then life is easy. See, all of that stuff we've learned is not true. It's all lies. And so if you're trying to build a business because you want to make money, I will tell you that it's just a matter of time before it doesn't work. And so the way you attract the energy is by understanding what you're putting out.
I love that you are shifting the focus. This is just what, I mean, in my opinion, this is just what we need, because it's like, okay, it's so finite when you make it just about money, and it also is exclusive, right? So right now a lot of folks are talking about inclusivity and diversity, especially in the workplace, so that products can be, more holistic and well-rounded and not so linear and one-sided or whatever.
But people don't understand what those words mean. Right? So the word diversity means something very different to you than it means to me, versus does to somebody else. And so when people quickly use a word to umbrella an action, the first question you should ask is, well, what does that mean? What are you really trying to accomplish? Let's get in the weeds of what you're talking about, because when you get under the conversation where nobody wants to get into that stickiness, you start to really see where the problem is that you need to solve, right? So diversity, which is a very popular word right now, it makes me laugh, because diversity is based on your perspective, right? So if you're in a different country, diversity means one thing. If you're different race, religion, tall, short, I mean, everything can be diverse, right? And so what do you mean? And then you have to figure out, well, what are you really trying to accomplish, right? And so when you're talking about from the business lens anyway, is to provide more opportunity, to be able to provide more resources, to be able to equal the heavy lift to a destination, right? Well, that actually doesn't fall underneath the word diversity, right? That's your responsibility as a leader, right? So as a CEO, right, as a leader, and I pride myself on being a leader, my number one responsibility, the thing that I spend the most amount of time on each and every day, is serving my people. Well, how do I serve my people if I don't know who they are and what their perspective is? That means I need to know the perspective of every individual teammate. So what that means to them, well, diversity is different by each one that I actually am trying to look through their eyes to understand what is life like for them. What do they need? What is their desired outcome? What's their challenges? What do they need help with? What are those resources? Every individual within the company. And that's one of the premises that I have been speaking about for 35 years, about how the inside of companies are unhealthy. It is not healthy for people to be in the old infrastructure. We have so much evidence that tells you it's not healthy for men, for women, for different races, for different places in the world, from different educations. It's just not healthy. It leads you to a dead end. And so we're like, okay, you have to break the model. I know people want to do like a little change, or maybe we'll just tweak something and do a different version of something that's old. No, it doesn't work. It doesn't sustain. And so you have to start from, what are you trying to do? And then what is the glue or the core values of what you stand for, and be articulate enough to say, this is what I stand for, and be okay with that, because it's not going to fit for everybody. So if you're a company that's 100% vegan, right? If that's your shtick, and you're like, we have no leather, we don't wear leather, we don't eat animals, we just whatever, we're pro plant, we're whatever the thing is that you got to be, then you have to stand up and say that's what you are. And great, celebrate that's who you are. Then for somebody that eats meat, or somebody who whatever, they can say, okay, I love that that's your thing. It just doesn't work for me. It doesn't have to be anything hostile. It just has to be, it doesn't work for me. I want a hamburger. You don't like hamburgers. Let's just kind of stay in each other's lane to celebrate all the differences, but we can find each other. We've gotten so politically correct on our vernacular, we've done an enormous amount of damage to each other, because we're trying to hide behind a label, instead of going, wait a minute, help me understand. What does that mean to you? Asking questions to be curious, to understand what your perspective is, what your journey is. What does that mean for you? And then for me to be of an act of service. How can I help you? Right? How do I align? I don't have to have the same journey. I don't even have to have the same belief systems. But what I can do is be open-minded and open-hearted to help serve you to get to where you need to be.
I love that you talk about service, but along with the service, you're speaking about being open-minded, and also, curious and going more to the core instead of like putting labels on things. I was just speaking for hours this morning with my teacher about language, and how language is so powerful, because it can be limiting, but it can also stretch boundaries, and think outside of limits. And how, let's say for a word like diversity, I mean, I'd love to just stick around here for a while, because you're totally right that diversity is being thrown around so many different ways. But what does that mean? And I love that you're saying it means different things for different people. And if you can just be real about what that means to you, and also if you really want something like diversity, then that's going to make the experience different, and actually probably the end result a little different, versus I just want to do it for whatever other reason, right?
Right.
If you think about biodiversity in nature, right, it does, there's a process. You can't just want winter to come in the summer.
Exactly.
You have to wait
Yeah.
some time. And then you have to prepare and you have to, get excited about it or, get ready for the miserable part about it, but then know that it's going to have a completion and there's a cycle.
Right. And if you don't honor where you are, right? So if you don't honor winter, spring will never come.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. Oh my
And
gosh, this is great.
right. And
Totally.
so what I say about, just again, you using the word diversity, if I put my lens of what I think it means and why I want it onto you, I have now completely disrespected you. Right? I'm not seeing you.
Mm.
I'm putting me on you. And so you can't do that if you are in a place of curiosity and a place of growth and build, right? So in a lot of these conversations, what's happening is we're trying to use old vernacular, old systems, old processes, old way of communicating, and wanting this crazy, ridiculous, different result. And that's why we have the problems that we're having. It's why we're getting some of the hostility out in the world today, because people are so frustrated with being misunderstood. They're like, that's not what I said. It's not what I meant. It's not what I said. And it's leading us to these pure chaos and outcomes. And so one of the tools that I try to teach when people have the heart of wanting to be curious and to seek to understand is start by asking for forgiveness. Literally start a conversation with saying, listen, I'm going to ask right now, I'm going to say something that is going to offend you. I'm going to say something that's hurtful. I'm going to unintentionally cause pain. And that is not my intention. My intention is I'm struggling to understand what your journey is, what you see, what you hear, and what you feel. And the only way to do that is if you permit me the permission to fall down and make a mistake, knowing that I'm going to learn. Because when you go, ouch, which is one of my other tools, right? You can, in any conversation that you ever have, all you need to do is go, ouch. And somebody's going to go, well, what happened? What happened? And you go, you just hurt me. And they go, what do you mean I hurt you? What did I say? What did I do? I don't know what I did, because that's really what's happening. But you have to have a response to go, ouch, right? You just labeled me this and that hurt me. And I go, well, why? Explain to me why, when I use that word, it caused you pain. Explain to me why that tone of voice. Explain to me how my limited thinking did something that is affecting your side. That's your responsibility. Your responsibility is to let me know that I'm causing, right, either an energetic vibration or pain or disrespect. I have to understand, or I can't do better. I first have to know, when did it occur? And then you have to tell me, what did I do? And then for me to go, okay, here's what I think I'm going to try to do differently. And for you to validate, yes, when you do this versus that, Amelia, it's better for me. Well, now we're both learning, because most pain is unintentional, right? Ignorance is unintentional. It's ignorance. Right. And so you have to open up these dialogues so that people can really start to learn and understand. And for the most part, right, for the majority, we actually want better relationships with people. We just don't know how to do it. And so we stay in these crazy false beliefs of what we think our comfort zone is, when the reality is it's actually causing more pain.
So this is great. I feel like there's so much to dive in here. And I know that we've got some folks on the line who probably want to chime in as well. But I'm just curious to know, what kinds of questions should people right now be thinking of who want to build quote unquote diverse teams, diverse companies? How can there be a less homogenous way of seeing diversity in order to really get to the core of what people are hoping to fix?
Well, so that was the problem that I took on, right? So I took it on typical Amelia fashion, right? 2 feet in and not apologizing for it at all. Remember, I've been criticized heavily for years on my thinking about and my being outspoken to say you can't help but bring your biases into your decision making, because you believe what you believe, right? So I say, once you know, can you unknow? And so that's the process. And so when you're making a decision, you're doing the process of elimination to try to make the best decision that you know. So, what's the tool to use to eliminate your biases so that you can just look at the data, right? Which means you're going to take the human out of the equation. That was the whole purpose of me creating the Genius Key, was to first show you what your genius is, not what your parents told you, not what your friends have told you, and not even the lie that you're telling yourself in the mirror, right? What truly is your genius? And then what does that mean in relationship to money and happiness and impact and all of the other things that are important to humans, our hierarchy of needs? And when you look at that objectively as a human, now you can make some decisions because you're really looking at your own reflection, which is not an easy thing to do, right? And then to take it a step further for companies and people who are building a team, whether it's a team of 2 or a team of 200,000, is to say, now let me take the Genius Key and be able to apply it to the desired outcome, and then let the matrix say, if this is what you say the outcome is, here are the people's keys that you need in this order in order to hit the outcome. So I can't see you. All I know is that you've got a key that unlocks my outcome. I don't know who you are, whether you're black, white, yellow, green, Christian, Muslim, Jew, where you are in the world, whether you have your MBA from Wharton or none at all, because I don't care. All I care is you've got a key that unlocks my success. Once you, meaning you on the other side, click yes, I'm interested in one of those projects, I now know you're a female. Why would I care before? Why would I care about anything other than you've got something that unlocks the keys to my success? And then for me to understand and go, wow, I never would have thought you were the one who had my next key, because my brain is going to say to me, oh, whatever it is that your myth is, right? The myth is, oh, if you're younger, then you wouldn't be a good strategist because you haven't had enough time in the trenches. If you're older, then all that stuff that we get in our head, which is our false beliefs, get in the way of us making the decision on how do I pair the next action with the next desired outcome, so that as you're moving on a team or moving within the company, you're not putting your false beliefs on other people, because that's limited. And so the other thing that I wanted to do inside of a company is make it all self-driven. Now, let me tell you, a decade ago, when I said out loud to other CEOs to make all the work inside of a company self-selected, CEOs were freaking out. They were like, there's no way my team will never pick up the work. They'll never do this. They'll never do that. Oh, the company will never be successful. I go, it's interesting to me that we know that people are the secret ingredient to success, but you don't trust that they're going to do the work. And what we find inside the Genius system is people pick more work than you ever would have given them, because it's only the work that matches their keys. They're not doing the work that they hate because they don't have a key for what they hate. They have a keys for what they love. So why wouldn't we give the power back to the people to say, here's all the work inside this company. There's no labels, which means it's not operations or admin, whatever. Here's all the projects that fit your keys. Which one would you like to take? And you go, I like this one. I would like this one. I would like this one. I would like this one. And then when you pop up, I go, oh my gosh, this is so great. You're on this team. Now I know what key you have. I'm like, oh, so you have the sales key. You're like, no, not this time. I'm not working on it. I've got the finance key. And I'm like, wow, now I get an opportunity to experience what it's like with you on a finance key, when I just assumed you didn't even have a finance. How would I even know you had that key? Because I only know you in a different context.
So fascinating. I'm interested to hear if anyone else on the line has some questions, and especially about your this process that you've created and developed for teams to be able to essentially unlock and open up different ways that they can share their talents with each other. I love that.
And it's only based on data, right? It's data, right? So here's what we know for a fact, right? It's not Ameliasms, it's facts. Go Google it, right? Is that 80 some odd % of people who have a degree in a certain field don't work in that field. Right. So because they did that as a favor for somebody else, right? Somebody else forced them to get whatever weird degree they have, right? We have people who have day jobs, but most people have some other hobby, some other thing that they're doing in their spare time. So what they're doing to make money and what they actually enjoy are going into two different directions, which that leads to unhappiness, right? So how do you get it parallel? So what you love to do and what you're good at doing, which is the thing you can't see, that's what you can't see because you do it so naturally. And so for you, it doesn't get on your radar. right? And so we have another genius exercise, which is called the letter to my friends, right? Literally send a letter, send an email to 10 people that you spend the most amount of time with, right? So whether that's your colleagues, your friends, from whatever it is, 10 people, and just say, why are we friends? Why are we friends? And why you think people are friends with you is 100% not why they're friends with you. And what you'll find also from doing this exercise, and I'll just give myself as an example because it's easy for me to pick on myself. I used to think that I was easygoing. And I used to believe that the reason that people were friends with me was because I have a very big heart. And so I'm a people pleaser. And the reality is, none of my friends are friends with me because I have a big heart and I'm a people pleaser. People are friends with me because I can get to the finish line quickly. I tell it like it is. There's no sugarcoating. You always know where you stand to me. There is no fluff, right? And so I was like, wait a minute. I'm spending all this time trying to be soft and warm and cozy and kumbaya and over accommodating and let me help you do this and let me help you that. And that's not what people wanted me to be friends with. And so it gave me back so much energy because I don't spend time trying to be something that A, is harder for me to be, and B, it's not why people are energetically attracted to me anyway. People find me when they're trying to make a decision. People find me when they're looking to take the next level up or scale. And what have I done? I've created a business that's crisis management, scale oriented, right? All that straight thing. If you're looking for somebody to come give you a big hug and tell you that it's not your fault and that, you know, some hero is coming on a white horse and everything's going to be better, I'm not your girl. But if you want to know exactly what you need to do in the next 2 steps to get closer to where it is you want to go, which you really want out of life, I'm the person to talk to. And so those are the things that you need to shift so that you stop spending energy trying to be all things to all people and really start to understand, why do people spend time with you? What is it that they're getting from you, the giving and the receiving, right? The infinity loop. And to understand that, because that's part of your genius. It's part of why you are attracting certain people. And then if the vibration is off, what you need to do to show up more authentically so that you move that energy that's not working for you out of the way and start getting in the harmony of what you were supposed to be doing to begin with.
I love that you bring in energy as you're speaking about these situations, because energy has a lot to do with everything.
It does. And
um,
it's how the world's connected, right? We all energetically vibrate with one another, right? We have to. And it starts with you. It starts to understand what thought you have and what energy it creates, what action, you know, comes out of your mouth and what energy it creates. It starts to really understand being responsible for who and what you are, and to see, is it working for you? If it's working for you, celebrate it and then attract people who also celebrate you. But if it's not working for you, then you're going to be led very quickly to the question, well, what do I do about it? If it's not working for me, then what do I do? Where's that 1, 2, 3 step? And that's what we wanted to provide.
Great. So this is a great segue as far as, you know, personal relationships with your network or with your neighborhood into this question here. So I'm very curious about your goal of perfect alignment with people you care about. Could you please expand on that?
So it's, again, I'll talk about a CEO. I do not know how you can lead people if you don't care about them. It baffles my brain because it's a huge responsibility to lead. And what you'll find out about leadership, the more you dig in it, is that the people on your team lead in different areas of strength, right? So to be a great leader is just as difficult to stand and lead the pack as it is to lead from behind. And what I found is the strongest leaders lead from behind, which means I've got you. You can fall because I'll catch you and I'll build a net so that there may be a bump, but there isn't the free fall. Right. And so learning what that means to lead from the front and lead from the behind, and when is important, it starts with really caring and understanding people. And like I said, acts of service, right? I to serve you, I have to know you, but to know you, I have to care. And so when I started, which is 35 years ago, you know, people are like, there's no emotion in business. You shouldn't care. You be a drill sergeant, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, wow, that does not work for me at all. I do. I care tremendously about the people who trust me to come work with me and are pushing the ball in the same direction with me each and every day. I care about those people and I want them to care about me. And so when I started saying this back in the 80s, people were like, that's because you're a female CEO. I'm like, no, it has nothing to do with me being a female. It has to do with being a human. I want to work for somebody who cares about me. I want the people that are with me to know that I care about them. What they say, what they do, and what they think, and how they live every day, it matters to me a great deal. And so setting the change of the foundation of how we're starting and how we're building a team, and that when you're in your area of genius, I trust you to lead because that's not my area of genius. So I can walk with you, I can walk behind you, and I can walk in front of you with the same respect, because at the end of the day, it's going to take all of that to get to the finish line.
So we usually have a lot of questions about imposter syndrome from live callers on different topics. Actually, I'd love to I see you laughing now. I'd love to hear you speak a little bit about that. And I say that because a lot of folks are either pivoting careers or, they're one of the first to look the way that they do, at the table, like all of these kinds of obstacles that reveal themselves at work in the workplace, and they're figuring out how to navigate through imposter syndrome. I'd love to get your 2 cents on that. Hello. I think she's frozen. Can you all hear me okay? Maybe it's me that's frozen. Okay, perfect. Okay, it looks like Amelia is a little frozen. So maybe we'll wait for her to reconnect. It looked like she hopped off. Okay, well, yeah, we were just talking about imposter syndrome. I'd love to know if anyone on the line, until we get Amelia back on, if anyone has any tips on getting through imposter syndrome. Yeah, someone's writing in the chat box, Nicole, they deal with it. Yeah, how do you deal with imposter syndrome is the better question. I find that often, I mean, especially now with COVID, it's like getting through changing careers or, looking for jobs and going through interviews and having to do all of this big show, during this big global crisis. It probably has a harder effect, I would assume, for imposter syndrome folks feeling imposter syndrome. I know it's a pretty sensitive topic. But anyway, if anyone wants to hop off of mute until Amelia comes back on, that would be nice. Tell me about what you're doing today. Okay, yes. So Lydia writes here in the chat box, I find it reassuring when I hear others sharing their own feelings in moments of imposter syndrome. Absolutely. I think that the more we can be transparent and share stories so that, we know that we're not alone, I think that definitely helps. I was doing a chat recently. Hey, Nicole, thanks for turning your camera on. I see you. It felt like we were all going through like a big therapy session because folks were chiming in with how, unfair, it is to have to deal with imposter syndrome in this, just in the tech industry in general. And just that, in my opinion, and what we decided on the call was that, there just hasn't been, historically speaking, enough room at the table for leadership to happen in a more diverse way and an inclusive way. So I know I'm rambling now, but Nicole, feel free to chime in if you got something.
Oh yeah, sure. I'll just chime in here and say that, I think I used to feel more imposter syndrome, but one kind of like what Lydia's saying, I find it reassuring when people share that they also deal with imposter syndrome. And when you think about people even like up to Michelle Obama saying that they deal with imposter syndrome, but beyond that, honestly, attending nearly every single chat and learn every day, that has helped me tons. It's really helped me put into perspective a lot of the skills and value that I bring to the table that I didn't realize prior to participating in so many chat and learns. Honestly, and I'm not, I am definitely pushing the chat and learn program, but also just really like listening to so many different women across so many different fields, from entrepreneurs to executives to just really just amazing people sharing their stories. It's so helpful. And I don't know if you share in that, Mariella.
Yeah, I think that it makes it more like tangible, more real when you can see that someone else has gone through that, and it makes you warm up a little bit with that. Hi, Amelia, we see you now.
I
Hi.
was like, what happened?
Perfect. No worries. I'm happy to have you back. We were just talking about imposter syndrome. I know that you were going to pick the mic up on that. So feel free to give some tips or tricks for people that are feeling imposter syndrome during these crazy times of COVID.
Well, so help me understand how you guys are defining imposter syndrome, because, I have my 2 cents on what I think an imposter is. So, share.
Just, feeling like this is a huge consensus, by the way, just like, several stories of mostly women, obviously, because we speak with mostly women here on PowerToFly, either not being respected for the work that they do, or feeling that they, don't have enough experience in the role. And so the reflection of, not being capable, and obviously, I mean, one of the things we always turn back to learning, whoever is hosting the chat is saying, coming back to yourself and realizing that you don't need to be validated from the outside. But I'd love to hear what you have to say about however you view imposter syndrome, and then any tips that folks can do to move through that.
Sure. So I'm going to answer that as a behaviorist, right? Because remember, that's my core of who I am, right? I've got a ridiculous amount of training in human behavior, because that was what allowed me to step forward to build my companies not using the infrastructure that had already been shown for me, right? I was like, I'm not going to build that kind of company. And if it doesn't work, then that's fine, but I'm definitely not going to build it the old way. And that was before. But so when I started in business, there was Whoopi Goldberg and Barbara Walters. Those were the only two women for my eyeballs to see. There was no Oprah, there was no Martha Stewart, there was no Meg Whitman, there was nobody like that. There was two women, and I was like, well, I'm not funny and I don't want to interview people. So there you go. And so when you talk about that chatter of, well, why me, or how can I be dreaming that big, or what if, whatever, those are all myths, false beliefs, dark shadow thoughts is what I call them. It's about creating the resources and the fuel that you need to feel strong enough just to step forward, right? So you're never going to feel like the delusion in your head. You think, well, when I make $1 million a year, then I'm going to feel more confident. Well, no, that's not true. When I lose weight, I'm going to feel more confident. When I look younger, when I get that job title. No, you can fill in the blank with anything, and you're never going to feel like you think you want to feel, because the whole premise of life is learning, right? And so if you're not learning, if you're not uncomfortable, right? So the true definition of learning is being uncomfortable. And so you've got to go through phases of being uncomfortable. So you're learning, and then you kind of flatline and recover and heal and kind of enjoy a little bit. And then you go back into learning again, because why would we ever want to be stagnant? The fountain of youth is to stay curious and to continue to stay learning. It's what allows you to connect with every other human in the world, because most good humans are trying to learn, seek to understand. And so what is it that you require to feel strong enough to just step forward? And I think that's the inner struggle of, well, why would I go in there and talk to my boss about, I really want this project? Or why would I, say to somebody, I don't really know if you should do that. Like, why step out of your comfort zone? What causes that? And those are tools, right? So it's by talking to other women and getting it out of your head and getting it out loud, because sometimes when you say something out loud, you go, actually, that sounded better in my head than when I just said it, or you talk to somebody who is living what it is you believe is going to bring you some type of joy or happiness or financial reward, right? So that's where you talk to somebody who's living the journey that you're talking about wanting, and then hearing that. I mean, it's part of the reason why I try to make myself available when people say, I want to run $100 million company. And I'm like, great. So you're going to run $100 million company. You do realize you're going to give up the relationship that you might want with your kids or with your spouse or with your community or with your family, right? There is going to be a give and take. And so people go, oh, I didn't think about that. So I'm all open to say me running and growing several $100 million companies cost me my marriage. That's what it cost me, because there's a cost. And it also cost me a very different type of relationship with my kids. Now, I'm blessed with the relationship that I have with my children, but it's not like other people who have a different relationship with their children. I don't believe in good or bad. I believe in different. And so you have to be careful with what you're looking to achieve without realizing the consequence of that desire. And the only way to understand that is by having open, honest dialogue. That's why you've got to ask for forgiveness first with other people that are actually living what it is that you're trying to do, to say, well, what is it that I'm not seeing? So to say, okay, well, parts of your life is going to look like this, and your time is going to be spent differently, and money is going to be different. Everything changes as you move up the ladder, right? And so you have to really understand what you're asking the universe for, because sometimes the greatest gift is the thing that you don't get.
Thank you for that. Let's move on to this next question here. So what is your best move to convince a buyer to buy your product? So I know that we've been talking more about, our lifestyle and our personal choices and things like that. So let's bring this from the business perspective. And of course, all of those things affect how we do business.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any insight here on this question?
Right. So whether you have a product or a service, right, you have to be the heartbeat of that consumer, that audience, right? And so if I am a behaviorist, right? I'm a behaviorist. I love everything about behavior. I'm constantly studying it. If you look at what I watch on Netflix and Amazon Prime and all those type of things, it's always behavior related, right? So funny comedy and some seeking thing about behavior, I'm watching that, right? It's what I do. It's what I live and breathe. And so the products that I create also are serving a community of people who do believe that behavior is the gateway to X, Y, and Z. So if I tried to create a product that was for, I don't know, for comedy, right? I would fail miserably at it. So it doesn't matter how much I would try to convince you, it wouldn't work. Right. And so when you talk about how do I get my products and services out to be better received? Well, if you are truly in alignment of what you're energetically putting out there, then the vibration automatically comes back, right? It's an infinity loop between you and the consumers. I'm going to provide something that I think is valuable, that serves your need, that meets your market. We're of the same belief systems. And then you're going to serve me back by giving me the information on how the products and services are or are not working. And I'm going to take that responsibility and pivot and come back. It's a continual consumer that's not a consumer for just today, because that's not how consumers work anymore, right? It's a lifelong journey of service that I'm going to provide my genius to you in many, many, many different forms that you want it in, not the form I want it in, right? So that's also something that has changed. It used to be that you create it and they will come. It's not that anymore. It's constantly understanding what your market, what your consumers are looking for from you, and then providing exactly what they want. And so that continual conversation and engagement of honoring both sides of the relationship is what's going to convince somebody you are somebody that I want in my life. So when I demonstrate, this is the skills I got. I'm a behaviorist. I'm a realist. I kind of dive right into it. Well, you may say, well, that doesn't work for me. I actually want something that's fine. I want to help you find the person that is going to work for you. I'm not going to try to be something different. I'm going to help you, right, by serving you to get to your destination. Because at some point in time, our paths may cross again, and you're going to help me get to a destination, or maybe I do become of service at another point in time. So it's honoring the value of the long-term relationship, because you don't know when the value is going to be there. That's why, when people say be careful on the way up because you're going to see them on the way down, I think it's a never-ending journey. You may start a relationship now because you're really excited about somebody, you just love what they have to offer the world, and there may be no call to action or need right now. It may come later, right? That's what networking is not about, me selling you something or what you can do now. Networking is for when I fall down, you're going to be the person that I rely on to help me get up. It's the up, it's the bounce of what your network is worth, not the immediate sale.
I love that. That's a good way to look at your network, and how it encourages you to work together and collaborate instead of just keeping it linear.
Right. And to help with the giving heart, right?
Yes.
That's how you tell, right? If you call me, I'm going to try to help you. I don't know what's in it for me, and I don't really care. I have a belief that eventually, at some point in time, your genius is going to unlock something that I may not see today. But that's okay, because I celebrate you and I see your value, and it will come full circle when it's meant to.
Absolutely. So we've got about 15 minutes left. So I want to try to get through a couple more questions, and then I'll pass the mic to you so you can let us know how to connect with you when we're finished with this chat. So how do you build your company with the right employees while hiring for growth?
Right. So again, this is about community, not culture. Right. I don't like the word culture, because if you look up the definition of culture, culture is pushed upon you. And so I think that pushing your beliefs on anything or anyone is negative. It's a negative energy, and it sets people up to fail. Right. So whether it's your kids, in your relationship, in a company, as a leadership, you just can't, the push does not work. And so it's being able to pull in, right, to build something of value, to be somebody who wants to serve, and then invite people on who believe the same thing or are looking to achieve the same type of outcome. So when you're talking about a team and a company, when you say, hey, listen, this is what I'm trying to do in the world, this is the impact, that this is what is on my headstone, and somebody goes, wow, I want to do the same kind of thing. Then you go, okay, how do we do it together? Right. And so I'm like, listen, I'm really good at this and you're really good at that. Let's work on the same team because we're pushing in the right direction. So it's about attracting like-minded people for outcomes who have individual skill sets that cause the lift to be easier. That's really what a company and a team is all about. And so you first have to understand, what are you trying to do? Why are you trying to do it? Is your genius in that equation? Because any one of us is only one ingredient in the recipe. So you need to find the other ingredients in order to be able to bake the cake. And so the we mind is the only mind that will sustain. A we minded company is the only company that's going to sustain. And if you don't understand what the we is, right, understand each individual and what's in it for them, then you can't really have a business plan, because it's too egocentric, and companies with egos will die. Just a matter of time.
I love that. It's
dropping like flies all around us right now.
It's true. So what if someone right now, do you have any advice for someone who is in a company right now that is very egocentric, that might be even afraid to leave because, there's so much uncertainty happening now? Do you have any advice for people who might be on, those kinds of teams or in those kinds of companies?
So first of all, the first false belief is that there's no such thing as uncertainty, right? We're no more uncertain now than we were a year ago. So anybody who thinks that you were safe and secure a year ago more than you are now, that was just the story you wanted to tell yourself. Right? Because you can get hit by a car at any moment in time. You can go broke at any moment in time. Life has a great way of just throwing something right at you. So we're actually less uncertain than we were a year ago, because what we know for certain right now is everything's changing. So it's the biggest opportunity ever in our lifetime. And so if you are giving your talent and your gift to others and it's not being celebrated and embraced, stop doing it. Because tomorrow will be no different. Next year will be no different. 5 years from now will be no different. The only thing that's going to change is you're going to be more bitter, angry, and resentful because you gave the best of you to somebody who did not value it. If you have a gift, right?
there's a million and one people out there that are looking for you. They just can't find you. And a lot of the time, the reason why we can't find you is because you don't know what your gift is, right? So that's why we say, shake your tail feathers, speak it, find your signature, get what you want out to the people who are going to celebrate you, because none of us are indentured servants. You don't have to do anything. You choose to. Even if you think you have to, that's the story. It's a story you're telling yourself, because you're going to bounce. You're going to find the people that do honor and celebrate you. And the minute you get on that course, what you start to say is, oh my gosh, why didn't I do this sooner? Right? It's like when I tell somebody, oh, they've never fired somebody before and they have to fire somebody, and they're like, oh my gosh, I thought I never would replace them, but yet something better comes along. It's when you have the breakup and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm devastated. My life is over. But you know what? The door opens and it gets better. Right? And so we're meant to continue to grow. So if you are giving yourself to somebody who literally is not excited, jumping up and down and thrilled that you're part of their team, you're on the wrong team.
You can say that again, but that would be such a hard thing to place into action, because unfortunately a lot of people are in those situations. So,
but ask for help, right? So when you say that, when you say I'm stuck, okay, so let's break that down. You're stuck because you need what? List it. I need whatever, 90 days of security. Okay, what does that look like? Okay, what are things that you're paying for that actually could be donated or merged, whatever. When you actually break it down to what do I actually need to get from where I am to the other side, and you break it down, it's actually not as scary as somebody thinks. And you're always within 3 steps of what you actually need, right? You just haven't put your foot out there, right? To say, okay, I actually really want to work for a company like that's over there. And then you find out, oh, listen, somebody that I know somebody is connected with them, or I'm connected on LinkedIn, and you share that, right? Here's my key for your success. And then it's, if you believe you can, you will. And if you try not to do it alone and you ask for help, you'll get help. So nothing is impossible. Nothing.
I love that. And I agree, nothing is impossible. All right, so let's move on to this next question. And we've got just about 8 minutes left. So I'd love for you to respond to this question and then let us know anything else you want us to know about the Genius Key system, how we can connect with you offline, and then any food for thought that you have for us. And just we can end the next 10 minutes like that. So I'll read this question here. What strategies might you recommend to overcome muscle memory in mature legacy organizations? I want to effect change through implementation of practices and tools such as your Genius Key system.
Right. So when you talk about muscle memory, right, it's about really getting honest about what is working and what is not working, right? I call it stop, start, and swap, right? So you're going to continue doing the things that are working. So let's first identify what is working and why do they work, right? So that you understand the why, again, not through your lens, but for other people that you're serving. Why does that work in this specific environment, to really understand it? And then identify what absolutely positively is not working. And then do we understand why it's not working? Sometimes it's because it's antiquated. Sometimes it doesn't meet the marketplace anymore. Sometimes it doesn't serve your current teammates and team members. But let's find out what's not working, right? So that you can stop the habit of just kind of going through the motion. You have to literally identify on your projects and tasks and saying, these things we've all looked at as a team and we've agreed they're working. Perfect. Let's stay doing that. These are not working and they've got to go into the problem bucket. And we're going to get to those in a second. And other things that we have to swap out, right? So when you actually just start talking about, what do I have to swap? Like you mentioned it in the beginning of this conversation, right? So you came into awareness that you have to swap some of the words that you say, right? And so just by taking something simple as that and saying, I'm going to stop using the word can't, and I'm going to say I can, right? I'm going to stop thinking that I couldn't make a drastic change, because why would you think you couldn't make a drastic change? What, you're not smart enough, you're not strong enough, you don't have a bit, like what is the story you're telling yourself and why you can't do something? Because I don't see that you can't. I see that you can. You just need the tools, or you need some of the actions so that you can. And so by just getting out of the muscle memory that leaves you stuck and living the same day over and over and over again, the only way to get unstuck is to challenge everything. And so if you're very rooted in your routine and you've been somewhere a long time and in the same groundhog day, then start with get up at a different time, get off, sleep, move on the other side of the bed, right? Break your habits from the get-go so that your brain goes, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on? So you're in total awareness of what you're choosing in your day, right? So simple changes is going to give you that perspective that's going to allow to say, okay, does this work for me? Does sleeping on this side of the bed work for me? Yeah, actually it doesn't anymore. I've done it for too long. I'm going to try the other side of the bed. Actually, I want to try a different room, right? Does having coffee in the morning, does it work for you? I don't know. Let me talk to you at 3:00 to see if that coffee in the morning is really working for your hair. Everything, question everything that's going through your day to say what small change is going to be the thing that unlocks the growth in the scale. It's not going to be the thing that you think it is, right? So sometimes it's just making a new friend or somebody that you already have in your network that you actually don't know very well. And you start having some conversations on them. You're like, you know what, wait a minute. I need a little bit more of you in my life. I need more of you and less of that over there. And so that is what helps your muscle memory never become just your unconscious habit, right? And so start with 3 buckets. This is what I'm going to start doing. This is what I'm going to stop doing. And this is what I'm going to swap out to see what happens.
I love that because it leaves room for breaking habits and developing new patterns that could potentially serve you. And then if not, just, try it again.
Right. And when you break a habit, you find a whole myriad of false beliefs that are attached to the habit. Remember, habits are there because they want us to believe a story that we're telling ourselves.
Great. So anything else about the Genius Key system that you want to speak with us about? It sounds super fascinating. How do we stay in touch with you? How do we inquire or find you online? And then, give us some food for thought to end these next 3 minutes.
Sure. So if you can spell my first name, you can find me anywhere, right? AMILYA on all of the social channels. You can find me. I answer all my own stuff. I try to get to every single question that I have. And the Genius Key is easy. It's literally less than $40, and it gives you your reflection. It tells you what makes you a genius. And then we can take that further if you wanted to compare what makes you a genius to see if that's what you're actually doing by day. Is that what's showing up in your company as a leader, in your career, with your boss, in your partnerships? Because if your genius isn't being celebrated, you're going to feel empty. You're going to feel every human, doesn't matter who you are, needs to be seen, heard, recognized, and celebrated in their value language. And so if you don't have those 4 pillars clearly understood for yourself, you're going to feel stuck. You're going to feel like you have no choices. So let's fill in the blanks to let you see what the other world is seeing from you, and then pair you up with the companies that are going to celebrate you, or within your company, pair you up with a project that's going to celebrate you. Because a lot of times it is right underneath your nose. You just don't see it.
Okay, and then last question, because I want you to talk more about COVID if you can, just for this last minute. Specifically COVID, specifically the global crisis that we find ourselves in. Any food for thought as it pertains to, everything is going virtually now, and people are, as you said, nothing. It's always been uncertain, but especially now for some people. So specifically relating to COVID, do you have any food for thought?
Sure. So what I'm doing with my clients is I took their calendars from last year, like Q4, Q1, right? And I take a look at their commute time that they used to have, like all of the stuff that was tactical that we had to do as we moved from meeting to meeting and in and out of the offices and stuff like that, right? There was hours, 2 to 3 hours every day that we spent in logistics that we're no longer spending. So how are you investing those 3 hours for an ROI, for return on investment? Are you spending that in learning a language? Are you doing it for leadership development? Or how are you taking those hours and investing in? Because what I find on most people's calendars is that they've replaced those hours of commute with empty calories, right? Something that's not causing them to further grow in their career. You need to take your commute time that you used to invest in yourself, right? Getting to and from work or whatever you're doing, and invest it directly into you to enhance for that next level. The other thing for COVID is your digital presence is more important now than it ever was before, because that's where the world went. So even if you didn't believe in social and digital and your platform and so on and so forth, you better believe in it now, because people are looking for you. So something very simple just on your LinkedIn to say, here's my genius. This is who I am, and this is what I'm fabulous at. And I'm looking for projects. Right? I'm looking to connect with you. I'm looking to build whatever it is. Put your call to action right up there onside your linking. That's your calling card. And if you can even take it a step farther, just put up on your social presence, right, a link that I can learn a little bit more on you. If you're on TikTok, or LinkedIn, or Instagram, or Facebook, so many of those links I click on don't work, first of all. So make sure go test your links. Or if they do work, they don't tell me squat about you. Well, if people are trying to look for you and I'm trying to bring you an opportunity, I can't even connect you with your next best thing because your stuff isn't tied up. So go and get every one of those links. Don't tell me, oh, I'm a cat lover. Tell me what you actually want to do for your hopes and your dreams, because somebody can then find you.
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you so much, Amelia. And thank you everyone for joining us live. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you on the next Chat and Learn. Bye.